There are times when our justice system hits a home run. The cops catch the bad guy, the prosecutor convicts him, and the judge puts him behind bars. But in the case of a Miller County man who confessed to the rape of his infant daughter, many are saying the system struck out. In 2009, a 5-month-old girl spent 10 days in University Hospital in Columbia, Missouri, after being brutally assaulted. A sexual assault response team went to authorities after examining the infant and finding signs of sexual abuse. Aaron Michael Fisher is the victim's father. He lives in the rural Brumley area of Miller County, Missouri. He was arrested, and a few years later, he confessed to the crime in open court. Authorities have handwritten and audio recordings of the confession. But this week, he was released from jail after 6 years of legal proceedings when Cole County, Missouri Judge Patricia Joyce said he had been denied his constitutional right to a speedy trial. The judge's ruling came 1 month before Fisher was scheduled to stand trial. County Prosecutor Ben Winfrey inherited the case when he was elected last year. By that time, it had dragged on for 5 years, with multiple jury trials scheduled, then canceled. Winfrey says many of those delays were the result of Fisher's own attorney, or Fisher himself. News of his release lit up social media, with some calling for vigilante justice, while others want Judge Joyce to lose her job. But for one family, the worst thing about Fisher's freedom is the fear that he might do it again. That's the adoptive family of the little girl, Fisher's own daughter, who he admitted he raped in 2009. Her name has been changed since then. She's 6 years old now. The adoptive parents agreed to sit down with Lake TV and LakeExpo.com for an exclusive interview, but were keeping their identity concealed to protect the family.
I'm William Holtz with Lake TV, and we now have the privilege of being joined by the adoptive parents of that victim. Understandably, it's been an unfathomable 72-hour roller coaster for you guys. How are you doing?
Disappointed.
Frustrated, mad, angry, in disbelief.
Yeah, I understand that you guys have been working on an order of protection. Can you tell us what the status of that is?
We've been trying to get an order for protection for our children since we found out about Judge Joyce's ruling on Friday night, and she ruled to have Aaron Fisher released to the public. We've hit roadblocks everywhere we go because in order to fill out an order of protection, we have to give our children's names, and when the adoption was finalized, we changed their names and we changed their social security number so he could never contact them again, and we have not been able to do that.
So no order of protection at this time. With that being said, do you and your family feel safe with this man on the streets?
No, we don't, and there's other families out there, and they shouldn't either, because, I mean, the evidence is there, and, you know, I just pray that nothing ever happens to anyone else like what happened to my daughter.
And it just doesn't, nobody can fathom what happened, and this person is walking the street right now. He's a ghost. He's essentially a ghost. He didn't have to tell anyone an address of where he's going. He was let out of the jail, and no one knows where he's at. He doesn't have to check into probation and parole. He could apply for a job, and nothing would come up in a background check at this point. He could be working around children. It is just ridiculous.
You guys fear he's capable of doing this again?
Very much so.
Absolutely. It's not a matter of if, it's when.
He's a threat to society.
And it's on Judge Joyce's hands from there, so.
There's countless medical reports that will be reviewed in trial that he is a threat to society. He should not be on the streets anywhere. Anyone that has done this to a child whatsoever. Like I said, he's a ghost now. Nobody knows where he's at.
We understand that Kids Harbor, an organization, has been instrumental in assisting not just over the last 72 hours, but over the course of the last 5 years. Touch on that a little bit.
Initially, my kids early on received therapy through Kids Harbor. They've also been an advocate and support system for us when we've went to court. They've become a huge support for us in the last few days, just trying to navigate us through what's going on now, what we should be doing, helping us get different agencies. I know there's a lot of people that are working on trying to figure out how to do an order of protection for us so that we don't have to put the children's name on there and hand them a piece of paper and say, here they are. I mean, this not only affects now, but later. What happens 20 years down the road when he has their name and he tries to contact them through Facebook or some other outlet? We can't have that happen. And that's why we changed their names, we changed their social security number, everything has been confidential from the start.
Sure. Your daughter is now 6 years old, and we understand that you adopted a brother as well. Besides those two, I know that you guys have other children. So tell us a little bit about your family and what life is like today.
We're not going to comment on our family dynamics. That whole thing is very confidential for us. Our children do not know what's going on in this situation. It's something that we need to keep their identities confidential. We changed their name, we changed the social security number. For the order of protection, we cannot put their adoptive's name on a document and hand that to Aaron Fisher. So he has that. That's why we changed their names. For now, for their protection, for later when they're 20, 25, 30, and he tries to contact them through Facebook or another venue, or when they have children, we can't have that. And people may ask, why are you doing this interview? Because we need people to contact the Attorney General's office. Ben Winfrey is filing an appeal, but we need people to be our daughter's voice, our son's voice, the public's voice, because he's walking the streets now, and he can potentially hurt another child any second.
A lot of people watching this right now have seen the stories break online and through Facebook, but commenting on that is not enough. Touch on that, Mom.
If all you do is comment on Facebook or gossip about this and say this is such a horrible thing, but you do nothing, you're part of the problem. We need somebody to be a voice for our family, for our children, for the community. You just need to contact the Attorney General's office and just be a voice for everyone. This cannot happen.
Do you guys plan to tell your children what happened to him one day?
I think there's going to come a point where you're going to have to, with social media and everything else out there. I mean, they're bound to find out, and it's my job to try to explain to them and not necessarily understand what happened, but what has happened. And, do I have an explanation of how this happened? No, I don't. But, it's my job as a parent and as a father and the rest of my kids, I have to explain it to them. And do I have an answer? No, but I want to make sure that it doesn't happen to anybody else. And
we have to advocate for our children, but there's going to come a day when we have to explain things. Our daughter was 5 months old when this happened. She had vaginal tears that had to be repaired laparoscopically.
It's all over. She had so many injuries, I couldn't even list them all. I mean, if people want to know, they can read about it, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you all the injuries that she had, and it's just sad. I just, if my family has to take the sacrifice of somebody like him being set free, then I guess my family is taking the sacrifice, and I just don't want it to happen to anybody else. We can hold our own, and we'll be just fine, and I'll make sure my kids are protected, but nobody else should have to go through this. And then just with a snap of a finger from a judge, oh, you can go now. You try to explain that. I can't explain it. So
He got his right to a speedy trial, which is a total injustice, because many times it was postponed because of him. But my children have had no justice for what he's done to them. And like I said, someday we will have to explain to a certain extent. She has scars from surgery. She doesn't know they're there now, but someday she's going to ask me what they're from. And how do I answer that question? How do I answer the question someday if she can't have children?
How would you both describe the handling on this particular case?
I don't think we're really going to comment on the handling of the case, except for what has happened now, which is Judge Joyce dismissing this and letting him walk free is ridiculous. She heard none of the testimonies of the case. She didn't hear anything. The only thing she ruled on was that. And if she would have just looked at more than a few docket entries and more, she would have seen that it was because of Aaron Fisher the whole time of postponing this over and over and over.
I think that she wasn't prepared. Judge Joyce was not prepared for this case at all. Obviously, she looked at nothing. And my child went from being the victim to Aaron Fisher being the victim of the system. And I don't understand how you can just let him postpone. You given him and every other rapist and criminal out there a blueprint of how to get out of jail. And there's going to be people taking note because it shouldn't have happened. She should have done her homework. How she is on the circuit and showed up in Miller County to just dismiss it with a snap of a finger is beyond me, because she has no idea the consequences of her action and how this is going to go down.
The huge consequences, because he's out there right now, somewhere, walking, somewhere.
Ready to strike again.
He's a sexual predator. He's a child molester. There's no words to describe what he has done and what he is capable of doing again. And she's set him free. And unless people call the Attorney General's office and push for this appeal to go through, he's going to be the ghost, and everybody should be worried.
Yeah, and for us to get a recording on our answering machine that he's been set free, I thought we were a little more professional down here than that, but I guess not. But that's not how you want to get the news, is by a recording.
Who'd you get the news from?
It just said somebody from Miller County.
Miller County Jail left me a recording on my home phone that Mr. Aaron Fisher had been set free out on the street.
And that's exactly how it was said, out on the street. So I want everybody to realize he is out on the streets. And it's not because of Miller County Jail. It's not because of the Sheriff's Department. It's not because of the prosecuting attorney. It's because of Judge Joyce's ruling. I can guarantee you that nobody in the prosecuting attorney's office or in the jail or in the Sheriff's Department wanted this to happen.
No, and the Judge Joyce didn't even call Ben Winfrey to let him know her decision. She sent it via email. So then Ben had to scramble and try to, get protection for us. And who in their right mind sends an email out to let them know their verdict, and then he's got to scramble to figure out what's going on? No, you call people in and you let them know your verdict. You don't send it by email.
at that point in time, in that specific instance, we had to give our 5-page victim statement in court. Probably one of the hardest things that we've ever had to do. But I will tell you right now, this is the worst thing ever to happen. Please just call the Attorney General's office.
What's your perspective on how prosecuting attorneys Matt Howard and Ben Winfrey handled this particular case?
I don't think we're really going to comment on that because the focus right now is what happened. And this process of 6 years really doesn't matter right now. The focus is getting this appeal done. Mr. Winfrey, I know, is working hard, and I know there's a lot of people behind the scenes working really hard for our family. But we've just got to get this out there. He has got to get off the streets. The appeal has to go through, and the Attorney General's office just has to rule in our favor.
If Aaron Michael Fisher were watching this right now, what, if anything, would you guys like to say to him?
I don't think at this point we really want to say anything to him. We're going to save what we want to say to him in court when we're able to give our victim statement again. And we want to be a voice right now for our children, and just to get the word out there that he's on the streets, he's somewhere, he's a threat to the public. Now
you guys have been, you guys have gone public with this, and I'm talking social media outlets, and now agreeing to sit down and do this interview. So with the opportunity you've got, what would you like to let the public know about this case?
I just want to, I just think as society we're blind, and I want to open people's eyes, and I'm going to go to any extent to open people's eyes. We have a problem here in America. In order to create awareness of what's going on around you, you need to open your eyes, because it's all around us, and we're just in a little bitty small town, but it's happening all across the United States, and I'm not going to stand for it, and I don't expect anybody to stand for it, and nobody's going to do anything about it unless you voice your opinion. These are elected officials making decisions based on nothing in this case, or who knows what. These are elected officials that we elected and are getting paid. So, careful who you vote for.
Mom, Dad, we certainly commend you both for having the courage for doing this interview and for coming forward with this, and we hope that this has a hand in justice being served. 27-year-old Aaron Michael Fisher of Brumley admitted to physically and sexually abusing his then 5-month-old daughter. Aaron Michael Fisher does not have to register as a sex offender. Aaron Michael Fisher is walking the streets without consequences, and Aaron Michael Fisher is free, and he will be free until action is taken. Email the Attorney General's office at the email address on your screen below and do your part by getting involved. And above all else, keep his victims and their families in your prayers. Reporting for Lake TV and Lake Expo, I'm William Holtz.